which is why we have such a close relationship with the Australians, because if we hadn't defeated the Japanese at the Battle of Coral Sea, which is, there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about with that battle, and the next big battle the Navy had, which is the Battle of Midway. You know, the Japanese would have taken Australia without any problem at all. And so, but at that point in time, you know, we take a big shellacking from the Japanese, right? And the U.S. government figures out, like, we better damn well do something to make these Japanese guys know that we're not going to stand for this. You know, that they're not out of range of our punches too. So this, I don't remember the name of the gentleman, but there's a submarine. This is what's cool about synergy, which we're going to get to on innovation in a second. There's a submarine commander who figures out that, you know, we don't have the range of any of our carrier-based planes to get too close to Tokyo without getting the carrier sunk. But if we put these Army B-25 Mitchell bombers on U.S. flat top, those could make it to Japan, and they won't have enough fuel. And not that they won't have enough fuel; they wouldn't have enough fuel anyway. But even if they could get back to the ship, they sure as hell can't land on the ship. So they would crane these things aboard and they'd fly them off, right? So they go off. There's a guy named Jimmy Doolittle, who at the time was a lieutenant colonel. It's very badly portrayed. Well, Alec Baldwin does a good job. The movie Pearl Harbor itself is horrible, but Alec Baldwin does a pretty good job being General Doolittle in the film. And they get detected by a Japanese picket ship like way earlier than they want to launch. And so they basically, all the weight they can get off these planes, they're getting out of these planes, and they launch these guys off. They make one run over Tokyo, make a very insignificant, you know, strategically or tactically or whatever, damage-wise, insignificant attack on Tokyo, but a huge strategic victory to let the Japanese know that, hey, the fight's going to be coming to your house too, right? When I was in Pearl Harbor at the U.S. Pacific Command, I was up the hill at Camp Smith. On one of my last, you have to do it. At some point you got to do a staff tour, unfortunately, but I was lucky I got to go there and do that. And we used to bring when the Chinese would come to town, they used to take them out to the Arizona, which is the battleship that was sunk. Well, there's like 3,000 Americans interred in Pearl Harbor that when that ship took a direct hit from a Japanese plane. They bring the Chinese out to the Pearl Harbor, and next to the Arizona Memorial, which is underwater, right? You got the USS Missouri, which is where they signed the surrender. And so they would try and make a point to the Chinese, like, oh yeah, look, here's where Pearl Harbor, here's where World War II and the Pacific started for America. Oh, and oh, by the way, over there's where it ended. Park that ship in Tokyo Harbor, and the Japanese signed the surrender terms, and so they're kind of telling the Chinese, like, hey, you know, let's play nice together. So anyway, the real reason I bring this up, and I want to make another point too real quick, because this is important, because it gets back to people, right? A lot of people like, oh, the Taliban and the Iraqis, I hate all these people, and a lot of guys get real, like, they don't look at humanity and see other people for people, right? I'm not saying I admire who the Taliban is or any of those things at all. It's got nothing to do with any of that. But the thing about the Taliban is I got an enormous amount of respect for those guys. Just like I got an enormous amount of respect for the Japanese in World War II and the Chinese in the battles they fought. Because when you go up against an adversary, you damn well better respect that guy. Because a lot of these forces are just as capable. It's a very common American mistake to think that we're just going to roll over these guys because they're going to be easy. The Vietnamese, very tough adversary in Vietnam. The Koreans, very tough adversary in the Korean War. The Japanese and the Germans, two of the worst to ever go up against anywhere. So, I mean, it's no joke. So, humility, from a couple slides back, super important, right? So this is why I'm a Navy guy, but I admire what General Doolittle said about World War II, right? And this gets all the way down into what I'm talking about with people. This slide has got it all, okay? And this isn't even quotes because it's paraphrased, and I'm not even sure. I couldn't find the exact thing, but I read it a long time ago. He said, all the guys and girls who fought in World War II only wanted to know three things, right? And this applies to what I call, I'll get into it, but there's things about work that are really important when you got people working for you, or with you, or however you want to see it. When you give somebody an assignment, there's a couple things you better be spring-loaded to do. The first thing is, General Doolittle said, they only want to know three things. One, the mission was important. I call that science projects. I don't give people science projects. I don't give you a little project, you make a volcano, we're going to light it off, you're going to get your A. You don't do that. If I give you an assignment, it's worth doing. You know, you need to be given a task that is worthy of your intellect and effort, right? So you've got to find those kind of projects and give those to people so that they can show their worth, right? One of the things, I'll save it for later. Just somebody remind me about the British in World War I on the slide when I talk about the front line, okay? That's you. You in yellow. There you got it. All right, cool, thanks. So anyway, so the mission was important, right? Like, I'm not sending you to do something that's not critical. It doesn't have to be like life or death, but it needs to be part of something, right? Efforts were appreciated. This drives me nuts every day. If a guy in the Navy handed me my oxygen mask to get in a plane, what do you think of the next two words on my mouth?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Hey, thanks. Right on. Very rarely do I hear people, oh, thanks. Hey, shit hot, nice job. You know, that keeps people going. You don't want to live in a vacuum of like, hey, am I doing the right thing? Is what you're looking for? I literally, when I first got in the corporate world, I was asking them. I was you know, I've been to school a lot. You know, the Navy sent me to graduate school twice. They sent me to undergrad for 4 years. Got a lot of education. And I'd be like, hey, that's what you're looking for? Because they had no feedback. Human beings live in a feedback loop. I don't care what relationship you're in a feedback loop. I'm going to get feedback in about 15 minutes. but every single time you do anything, how somebody looks at you, how they respond to you, that's a feedback loop, right? And if you don't get what you're doing, like you don't feel like you even know if you're on the right vector, then that's difficult. So if somebody's working for you or with you or however you want to look at it, you need to be like, hey, thanks a lot. Or hey, if they're making a mistake or you don't like something they did, I don't like when people are like, well, you got to prove that to me. It's like, no, boss, you're part of the loop. You're actually part of the feedback loop. Like, we're bringing an idea to you. You need to kind of run it through your mill, and you need to guide us as to how you see this problem so we can perfect the solution. It's not like, oh, I don't like that. You know, like, oh, these potatoes are cold. Bring back some more potatoes. You know, that doesn't work like that. It's like you need to be like, hey, I'm looking for potatoes au gratin or whatever, right? Not live in this world of like, just keep bringing me stuff till I see something I like. That's not the way stuff works. And I love this last part because this tells you everything that's important. So basically, mission was important, the efforts were appreciated, and they had a decent chance of survival, right? What the hell is a decent chance of survival, right? Is that 50-50, 70-30, 30-70, right? We lost a lot of guys in World War II, a lot of guys. And if you gave them a task worth doing, and you told them that you appreciated what they were doing, they'd do anything for you, is what that says, right? So if you apply that to your interactions with the people that you're working with, above and below you in the corporate world, you're going to be ridiculously successful. And I won't even say you'll be successful. People are going to love you, right? So I think that's enough on that. Is everybody cool?
World War I British.
That's coming up. All right. We got 5 minutes. I can do these in 2. So innovation, fearlessness, right? All I wanted to say about this is